President Obama's trade agenda was jolted back to life this week as the House of Representatives narrowly granted him fast-track authority to finalize a sweeping trade bill with 11 Pacific Rim nations. But it has not been an easy ride, and nothing can happen until the Senate okays the measure, which is not a sure thing there. Here to discuss the benefits and drawbacks of the measure and whether or not it will eventually be approved by Congress are again Jackie Guzda, professor of communications at Western Connecticut State University. Charles Steindel has stuck around. He's a former executive at the Federal Bank of New York and a resident scholar at Ramapo University. And Alain Sanders as well has stuck around so well as we continue this discussion. Well, you know, I remember 20 years ago, and Al Gore was on board, and President Clinton, and also Ross Perot. The NAFTA deal was supposed to change the world and give us more business. What happened? It devastated the Rust Belt. Manufacturing jobs went to places where it was cheaper. And now we have this Pacific Rim deal brewing, which has been done in secret. Why should anybody, based on the NAFTA, trust what's going on here and whether it will help, as they say it will?
Well, that's exactly the problem. That's exactly the problem for President Obama. The past deal didn't work out as promised. Of course, one doesn't know what the new deal might turn out to be or how it would function. But I think the real problem for many Democrats and many people is that they don't trust, again, it goes back to an issue of trust. They don't trust Obama to be a good negotiator. He hasn't proven to be a good negotiator domestically when dealing with political issues at home. There's some real problems and of trust dealing in his...
Let me stop you there. You've said that a couple of times during the show, and I respect that.
Right.
I'm curious to know why you don't think he's a good negotiator. Give me a specific example.
Because he seems to draw lines publicly. He enunciates lines publicly,
which he had done,
which he has done with foreign policy. He did that with health care, and then he backs down. And so there is the impression that he negotiates against himself. He's willing to give in before he really understands what the point is or the major point is of the other side. And that's coupled with another element, that he issues red lines, then he backs down, but he also doesn't talk enough to members of Congress. He doesn't negotiate behind the scenes. He doesn't schmooze. There's a famous headline in the New York Times, Obama doesn't schmooze. Well, if you want to be a president, if you want to deal with Congress, you have to schmooze, and you have to make your red lines clear, okay? You also have to be able to stand up. There are times when you negotiate, there are times when you compromise, and there are times when you say no. So your red lines have to be believable, you have to stand up for them, but also in between those red lines, you have to negotiate, you have to discuss,
you're saying it's a trust issue.
Absolutely.
With the president. Jackie, I'm sensing something coming from this side here.
Yeah, with all due respect, Alan, that's a lot of the right side talking points against Obama. He backed down
I'm not
once.
on the right side,
All right,
by
let
the
me
way.
finish. He backed down once, and that had to do with Syria. He did not back down on the healthcare issue. The healthcare issue was a big piece of bureaucracy, which they finalized and made a little more perfect here and there along the way. We just modified it. It wasn't a back down. But people who are against Obama, that's one of their talking points. Oh, look what he did, and he doesn't do anything behind the scenes, I would love to discuss what we know, not what we want to know.
I would just like to respond.
Charles, we'll get to you in a moment.
I would just like to respond that the people who voted against Obama were Democrats. They were not on the right. Point number one. Point number two, on health care, Obama said we need to have a single-payer program. He backed down on that. He said it has to be.
Secondly,
we can talk about other things, but I don't think this is simply saying, writing it off, this is the right. This is a lot of people suggesting that Obama doesn't know how to negotiate.
Right, and there's a lot of people who suggest that he does. But let's get back to the point.
Let's leave it there for just a moment. I want to go to Charles for just a moment. Okay. What does your gut tell you when you find out that there's some sort of trade deal that there hasn't been a great deal of transparency we really don't know about, but just go ahead with it?
Well, I have my license as an economist. As an economist, I'd say I believe in trade bills, things which liberalize trade. It's known for 200 years since David Ricardo. More trade helps everybody, but it helps everybody. But there's two things on that. First of all, the advantages of a deal like this, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, like NAFTA, tend to be oversold. Their positive effects and their negative effects tend to be way oversold by the people who are benefiting. Second of all, in principle, when you have a trade deal, there are winners, there are losers. The winners are supposed to be able to get enough to help the losers. What seems to happen in these deals, we do have losers from them. We never seem to help them. And I think that's why And so people focus on the details of how the deals are negotiated. They're always negotiated in secret. They're always handled in secret because, Lord help us, if you do this publicly, nothing would ever get done.
Well, looking back 20 years, NAFTA, do you think that was a success?
I think it was a success. Yes, obviously we have lost jobs in the
but that
industrial
money
Midwest.
that was made was not handed back down.
It wasn't
to the folks
necessarily
that needed
handed
it.
back down. The industries which disappeared in the Midwest were on their way out anyway. Mexico has prospered, in fact, has become a much stabler society than it was 20 years ago, in part because of the shift of industry to Mexico. From that point of view, it was certainly a plus to Mexicans, and certainly a certain plus to that area, people who trade with Mexico, people who go to Mexico. The problem is we don't do very well at getting the retraining programs in place and the like for the workers in the U.S. who are hurt. That's really a separate issue from the trade deal.
No, what and I just want to go understand it. You thought it was a success, even though you had older folks who probably couldn't pick up the nuances of the internet and maybe couldn't be retrained in that arena where it's burgeoning and so on, or maybe didn't want to go into healthcare, were really left out in the cold during
They
that.
were left out in the cold, but the question is, do we stop? The industries were going anyway, and the question is, do you stop that process? Do you draw a line in the sand?
It hurt the auto industry, though. It hurt the auto industry significantly. And they made a lot of mistakes in the boardroom, but still it hurt the auto industry.
On the other hand, you at the same time, you have the process with the Japanese car makers who are rapidly expanding capacity and production in the United States. So we're making more autos in the United States, I think, than we ever have before. So when we say the auto industry, it's certain companies, certain areas are hurt, certain companies in certain areas are helped. This is the way the economy naturally evolves.
Let me throw it out to Alan and Jackie now. What does it say to you when a deal like this is done in secret?
Well, I know you don't like me talking about trust, but it has to do with trust. And it has to do with the fact that the perception, whether real or not, is that these deals have benefited big corporations. And for ordinary workers, that's a real problem. And so when you combine that with these ideas that these things are negotiated secretly, that creates problems. Now, I have to say this to you. If you want to engage in serious negotiations, typically they do have to be secret because people have to give and take. You can't have successful negotiations publicly. So it's important to have secrecy. But combined with that, you have to have that trust. If you trust your negotiators, you then allow them to negotiate secretly and you see what the results are.
Well, this goes back to President Obama. I want to just
Right.
turn to here because if he came out and said, look, I can't tell you everything, but this is what it's going to do, A, B, and C. And I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing it from the president.
Right now. But this bill is going to be online and it's going to be out there for the public to see for 60 days before he can sign it. And as he said, all those I's are going to be dotted, all those T's are going to be crossed, and we'll be able to see it after we work it out, as you suggest. Then we can say yes or no.
Well, if it benefits...
But here's the catch, okay? Yes, but he wants an up or down vote. And the fact that his liberal allies in Congress don't want it is they don't trust him. Because if it's an up or down vote, they can't change it. And why do they want to change it? Because they don't trust him.
No, I don't think it's trust him. Elizabeth Warren is saying she doesn't want to give that kind of power to a future president.
Well, I'm going to give you the last word. We have Democrats and Republicans who, when they run for office, they benefit from people who have wealth and help them in their campaigns. If all of them and the wealthy are going to benefit from this, why do you have so many defections in the Democratic Party?
Because
what did they see?
Because they see that this hurts labor. As you two were discussing before, it's taking a lot of manufacturing outside of the United States and paying people overseas a little bit of money.
But if you were strictly making a money calculation and you're a Democrat and you have labor that has some money but its influence is waning, wouldn't you want to go with those, especially on the Citizens United, who have the wealth and might be help you get reelected? I know that sounds crass, but this is what we're talking politics now.
That is crass. It is.
Well, I'm just telling it like it is. I'm sorry, Jackie. All right, we thank you very much for joining us in the discussion on trade and the new trade bill that is percolating in the Senate and the House. When Fresh Outlook continues, the shooting this week in South Carolina that has sickened all of us and why random acts of violence involving guns continue in this country. We'll be right back.